Hey footy fans, time for more footy fun with Footy Fin, and as I promised on my last video, I just want to do a review of the Wallabies season 2024 after a disastrous 2023 and Rugby World Cup under Eddie Jones. How did the Wallabies go this year, and then how are things shaping up for the British and Irish Lions tour of Australia next year, and then on to a home World Cup 2 years after that. Okay, so I'm coming to you from Brisbane in Australia, where it's forecast to hit 35 degrees today. So this Wallabies jersey's a little bit warm, actually. Anyway, so overall, the Wallabies played 13 tests in 2024. So started with a couple of mid-year tests after the Super Rugby season, 2 against Wales, 1 against Georgia. Reasonably comfortable wins for the most part there for the Wallabies. Then into the Rugby Championship, 2 games against the Springboks at home, 2 games against Los Pumas in Argentina, and 2 against the All Blacks, 1 in Sydney, 1 in Wellington. Pretty dismal Rugby Championship, it has to be said. Only 1 win from 6 there. And the Wallabies, of course, finished bottom of the table of 4 in that championship. So pretty ordinary. They then had a hiatus for the best part of 2 months, I think, 6 or 7 weeks between tests, some training camps in that time, etc. Then went on the tour of Britain and Ireland. Started the tour really well, 2 wins, unexpected win over England, and then a comfortable win over Wales. Then finished with 2 losses. So 2 from 4 on that tour. Overall for the year, 6 wins from 13, a win rate of just under 50%. So not great, but if you think about where they were coming from last year, we'll come to that. If I take out the tests against Wales, of which there were 3, and the tests against Georgia, and we only look against tests against higher ranked opposition, those in the top 6 or 7, remembering the Wallabies started the year ranked 10 globally. They're now 8. It's a pity they couldn't have got to 6 or 7. Anyway, so for those 9 tests in 2024 against higher ranked opposition from the top 6 or 7, just 2 from 9. So they were wins, away wins, both of them, 1 against Argentina and 1 against England. So that's not a great stat in itself. Just looking at the Rugby Championship, as I said, overall pretty disappointing for the Wallabies. There were just a few sort of highlights, and that was the win over Argentina in Game 1 of that sort of mini-series against them, a late win with a late score to tie up a win. And then in Bledisloe Game 1 in Sydney, the All Blacks got away to an early lead, or was it 21-0 or 24-0 after 18, 19 minutes or something. That was very disheartening. But then in the latter 50 to 60 minutes of that game, they showed some real ticker and some good rugby and clawed it back to a very narrow margin of, was it 3 points or was it 1 point? I meant to look that up. Anyway, they did well there. They were really the key highlights from that 6-game championship. And interestingly, both matches, both wins, or both highlights were followed by pretty disappointing losses to the same opposition the following week. So not necessarily great, but to put things in context, we have to look at the baseline they were coming from, and that was a disastrous 2023 and a particularly disastrous worst ever performance at a Rugby World Cup late in 2023 under Eddie Jones. A real disaster. Things were at an all-time low for Australian rugby at the end of 2023, and it was almost the only way is up. If we look at just back to those squads in the Rugby World Cup of last year and compare to where the Wallabies are sitting now and who the key routine starting players are, there's a lot of differences. So if we think firstly about players that were disregarded and ignored by Eddie Jones for the Rugby World Cup. It's pretty damning. So first of all, captain Harry Wilson, number 8, who's captained the Wallabies throughout this season, he wasn't even picked for the squad. There were other forwards, key forwards that were omitted, but most tellingly, if we look at the backs that were disregarded and ignored by Eddie Jones for the Rugby World Cup, we could do a full backline of current players who have played and done well in the Wallabies jersey in 2024. So I'm talking about the now starting halves combination of Jake Gordon and Noah Lolesio. Both of them were overlooked by Eddie Jones. The centre pairing of Hunter Paisami and Len Ikitau, both overlooked by Eddie Jones for the Rugby World Cup. Now, Ikitau did pick up a shoulder injury in the Rugby Championship, but I believe he would have been fit, if not for the very first pool match of the Rugby World Cup, then soon after. Andrew Kellaway, now a regular starting winger, he was taken to the Rugby World Cup, totally ignored, left out of the 23 for the first 2 matches, and then just brought in when a bit of panic set in the last 2 matches. Tom Wright, starting fullback for the Wallabies all year this year, left out of the squad for the Rugby World Cup. Filippo Dalguno, who did start the year as a starting winger for the Wallabies, scored a couple of tries, did very well. He was also left out of the Rugby World Cup. And then we have others like Dylan Peach. So basically, we could form a whole backline there. Tom Wright, Andrew Kellaway, Filippo Dalguno on the wings, Ikitau and Paisami in the centres, and Lolesio and Gordon in the halves. And that's a pretty handy backline, all of whom have done well in the Wallabies jersey this year. So that puts things in context. Very quickly, on the flip side, other players who were taken to the Rugby World Cup and haven't made the Wallabies this year, or indeed have switched to other codes. Let's just focus on them for a second. Mark Nwanganitawasi and Carter Gordon have both gone over to the NRL. And Jordan Pataya, who was a starting 13 in most of the World Cup tests, is now trying out for the NFL. So I would say that their experience under Eddie Jones has turned them away from the game of rugby, largely. And then very quickly, some others that were taken to the Rugby World Cup who haven't featured for the Wallabies this year. Dave Parecki, who was captain for a good number of games at the World Cup. Richie Arnold, Samu Karevi, and Marika Coriambeti, they were briefly trialled this year, didn't really work out well. Sulasi Vunivalu, Jordan Pataya, as I said, Rob Leota, Tom Hooper, Lolakai Feketi, Blake Shoop, Isaac Fines Leoliawasa, Jordan Uelese, and there are others. So look, what I'm saying here, let me cite one other thing. At the end of 2022, before when Dave Rennie was still Wallabies coach, Australia finished their year with a 3-point loss to Ireland in Dublin. Then Rennie was sacked. Jones came in for a year. He was thankfully sacked, and Joe Schmidt's come in. And again, the Wallabies have finished their year with a 3-point loss to Ireland in Dublin. So you might say, on that basis, that the Wallabies have only just getting to a point where they're recovering from the Eddie Jones, Hamish McLennan debacle of 2023. I would say that it may even take longer than that to fully recover. So if you can think of all those players who were ignored in 2023 by Jones, if only they could have played Test rugby throughout 2023 at the Rugby World Cup and elsewhere, think about where the Wallabies team would be by now. But sadly, that's not to be. So overall, how does it rate? Well, look, prior to the Northern Tour, I would have certainly given them a C at best. Now, after the Northern Tour, even though they finished with 2 losses, they did well in all 3 games, excluding the Scotland game. I'm oscillating between a C plus and a B minus, but overall, because of the decent finish against Ireland in Dublin, I'm going with a B minus. So there you go. That's my wrap on the Wallabies for 2023. Tell me what you think, please. Thank you for watching this far. Please like, subscribe, comment, etc. Till next time, you might catch me around the middle of a rolling mall. See ya.